Your wonderful conversations for a quick friend annual board meeting. So many of you know that the president of the library, of the Pioneer Memorial Library, has been in existence, I think, since like 1964, something like that. Maybe earlier. We have the original stamp that they did and all of their original years. 1978, I knew it was a long time ago. We have all the original documents. But every year they give us an earn money used as part of the friends. Earn money and help the library immensely. This year has been especially wonderful in 2024. And I'm going to have Ben tell us a little bit about that, but also we're going to have a quick annual meeting so that you know what we did in 2024.
Okay, well, let's see if I can do this without tripping here. So, okay, I'm Deb Vaughn, and I got elected president last fall. And somebody had to do it, right? But that's better than being secretary and having to write everything. So if the information is not here, that's why. Okay, so we have the annual meeting, we'll call it to order. And we're going to read and approve the minutes of 2024. And Melanie's going to get to do that.
Some of our people and the friends, our board members, are out of town. They were originally going to be here, and then some things happened. You know, doctor's appointments and other things happen, so they aren't here. I told them I'd read it. The meeting was called to order by Pat Erickson, secretary, at 12:10. The board members present were Carla Haggard, Bev Vaughn, Joe Hartman, Pat Erickson, and who's secretary. Others present were Lynn Duffy, assistant director, Nolan Wilkes, director of the PML. In addition, there were 47 members at large and guests present. Pat Erickson read the minutes, just like I'm doing. Marilyn Hall moved to the steps, Donna Henry seconded, and the motion is carried. Carla Haggard presented the president's report. Cash balance of the 1231 was 15,349.50 cents. Bev Vaughn moved to approve, and Donna Henry second, motion carried. Candidates present were introduced. Proxy votes were 54 returned, 33%. And for ballot vote of 40, David McClure, Pat Erickson, and Tony Myers were all approved. Carla Haggard gave the reports of Friends activities for 2023. Business items, Friends board met at 7 a.m. on Tuesday. The meeting meets each month at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, the second Tuesday. All are welcome to attend. With the resignation of a board member, the board, Friends board is looking for an additional member. That was for last year. And Marilyn Walls, who doesn't seem to be here today, but was last year. There she is, right there. Sorry, Marilyn, she's not broken. And she actually heard the call that we needed a member, and so she came to be a board member. So that was fun. And then motion was adjourned at 12:28 by Christie, with the second by Bev Vaughn. Motion carried, and the annual report was submitted by Pat Erickson, secretary. And you have this on the back of your page, on the back side of your agenda. Did anybody remember anything from last year that we retain? If not, can I have a motion to accept the minutes? Joe Hartman, okay? Second.
Marilyn is going to second it. Okay. All approved, say aye. Any nays? Okay, that is done. Okay, the treasury's report for 2024. We ended up with $106,023. And that is from the membership. We got some money from group support group, Adopt a Magazine, Murder Mystery ticket sales, and the grants for the hush offices. And we also got some individual donations for the hush offices. And Ballman Mortuary gave us money last year in December but it'll be for this year, and that is $800. And you probably heard we are not gonna have the murder mystery now this month. We are gonna wait and do it in October because of the elevator. In the expenses, we had postage that we sent out for hush office letters, summer reading, retirement gift. You can see that they are on this last page. So anyway, the checking balance beginning of January 24 was 13,326. And then you subtract all the expenses at the $5,720.20, and then the credits. So as of January or December 31st, 2024, we had $113,632.30. Everybody approved the treasury's report? We need a motion to approve it. Okay, Marilyn is approving it. All in favor, say aye. Okay, we need a second too.
I second it.
Okay, Carlotta's gonna second it. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, any opposed, nay? Okay.
One note, that was in 2024, so anything we got from the hush office in January is not on this report. I just want you guys to know that. So we have gotten the donations.
Okay, so we got a presentation of the candidates to serve as Friends Board of Directors. And we have Shelley Belzer, Jerry Hummel, Deb Bond, which is me, Marilyn Walls, and Heather Dixon, and they got all approved by proxy, and you have that here too, so. Okay, well, I thought you did, but I guess you don't, so we'll just call that a mystery. Okay, report on Friends, is that where we're at, Melanie? Okay, so the Friends activities in 2024, we've done a variety of things. The murder mystery is one. Adopt a magazine, adult teen summer reading, children's programming, downtown trick-or-treating, membership dues, grief support workshop, hush office fundraising, and here's our hush offices right here. And then we've gotten new paint and lights and new front door, the new entrance. We've gotten several grants, stuff like that. All approved? We're quick, aren't we? Okay. And anybody is welcome to come the second Tuesday of every month for the Friends meeting. It is at 7 a.m., but it is only once a month. And that is from September to May. So we have our summers off. Okay, meeting adjourned.
Okay, wonderful. And if you have any more questions, come and see us. The invoices for like the hush offices haven't been done yet because we just finished up some of the construction. So we're kind of waiting for everything to come together. So that wouldn't be in 2024. It'll all be in 2020, just so you know. Just want to keep you guys informed what's happening. But we had a very successful year for the Friends, and we are so appreciative. They sent all the letters out, applied for 3 or 4 grants, and it was great. They just did a wonderful job, and we're thrilled. Now, having said all that, let us invite our speaker, Lora Jones. She's going to speak a song of a wounded heart. I learned this from one of our staff members who liked the book and said, can we see if we can understand? And I said, yes, let's do that. So I'm going to give Lora the floor, and she can tell herself about her book, about herself, and whatever she wants to share. Oh, excuse me, turn off your phone. If your phone is on, you shouldn't silence it.
Good afternoon. It is such an honor to be with you today. I know that my voice is kind of light, so can everybody hear me okay? All right, I got some okays from the back row, so now I should be in good shape. I am from Liberal. Any of you ever been there? Probably what you know about it is cake day races, yeah. Maybe the Air Museum. It's a nice place to grow up. I grew up on a farm north of there. My dad was a dryland wheat and Milo farmer. And it's awesome to grow up in the country. I finished up all of my schooling at Liberal, and then I went off to Kansas State University. We have any Kansas State folks out there? Yeah, good. I'm at home then. There is where I met my husband. Now, the interesting thing about that is that he grew up in Liberal, but I had never met him before until I got to K-State. Isn't that crazy? When I met him and it's one of those times when the line of haven't I seen you somewhere before truly fit, because that's what he said. Aren't you from Liberal? I remember seeing you in the halls, but I didn't recognize him at all. It was not one of those instant fall in love kind of things. It was a gentle slide, I guess I would say. Once we became engaged, then I had learned that what the Lord wanted to do with my husband was for him to go into the ministry. So he became a pastor, and he had been studying engineering. Pastors don't make that kind. But I was not disappointed. I really wasn't, because that was my heart as well, and my willingness, and I desired to follow the Lord too. So at that point, we moved to Clay Center, Kansas, and we lived there for 7 years when my husband pastored. And that's where we were living at the time that our daughter Janessa was born in 1990. And then we moved to Grand Island, Nebraska. It's not all that far. That's one of my favorite places to have lived. I must admit, I really like snow. Don't get too much of it, remember, but you guys live hard. Anyway, we lived there in Grand Island, Nebraska for about 7 years and that's where our son Jaden was born in 1993. At the conclusion of that ministry, we moved to Miami, Oklahoma. That's the northeast corner of Oklahoma, not too far from Joplin. Now, why am I telling you all of this? Well, this book is a story. It's a true story. It's my story. I never intended ever in my life to become an author. Wasn't on my bucket list. Probably didn't even have the skills for it, because I studied accounting at K-State. And I sure never intended to be standing in front of people, but sometimes life doesn't turn out the way that you expect it to. Have you experienced that? So have I. We lived in Miami, Oklahoma for about 4 years. And it came to be Thanksgiving time, 2004, and we planned a trip home to Liberal, where we were both from, to celebrate Christmas at Thanksgiving. Because you might not have ever thought about it before, but probably your pastor doesn't leave town across Christmas. It's kind of an important time to be at home. So we usually picked another time and celebrated Christmas with our family. And that's what we were doing. So we picked up the kids after school on Tuesday and headed towards Liberal. We stopped in Wichita, Kansas to have supper with my husband's little brother and his family. Had a great time, probably talked too long. Like family does when you haven't been together. And we left that little pizza place in Wichita a little before 9 o'clock that evening, expecting to go on home to Liberal that night, wake up about midnight. Get there about midnight. I was going to take a nap and wake up about midnight. Well, when I woke up, everything about my life had come to a sudden. What we didn't know Well, we noticed when we got out of the restaurant that day that the temperature had dropped. But that wasn't a big surprise in November, but it had been a warm November and we had no concern about the roads. But we weren't very far out of Wichita when it started snowing. Again, we weren't worried about the roads because it had been such a warm November. But in the valley just outside of Kingman, Kansas on Highway 54, the road goes from a divided highway to just a two-lane highway for about a mile before you get to Kingman. And right below that, those old buffaloes on the hills. You've driven that road, any at all, that's kind of a landmark. A pickup coming from the other way hit black ice in that valley that he didn't expect either. Nobody was expecting anything. And he slid across the center line and hit his head. When I woke up, I was woke up by bright lights, and it took a long time of reliving everything to figure out what happened. That I probably woke up when that pickup slid and shone light in my eyes, and then I was knocked out. I just didn't know that. So the next moment I was aware of, I was trying to take a breath, and I couldn't breathe, and I didn't know why. No understanding that we'd been in an accident. And as that breath finally came, and then I was able to open my eyes, and slowly the world kind of started clearing up, and I could see again, and I looked around me. And that's when I realized we'd been in an accident. I could see that my husband had been knocked out as well. So I reached over to take his head in my hand and try to wake him up. And then I realized that I shouldn't move him at all. Like he might be hurt and I could cause damage. So I just froze in that position, holding his head in my hands. It didn't occur to me how badly the vehicle was mangled and how we weren't in the same places of where we used to be. I could see my daughter behind me, and I knew that she was breathing, but I knew she wasn't awake. And it was just moments before the EMTs came. There was actually a chaplain for the hospital that was just happened to be a couple of cars behind us, just coming into town. So he was there immediately and started talking to me, getting phone numbers from me, things like that. Right? The amazing thing of my story is right in the middle of all of that, I began to hear a song playing in my mind. Maybe it was even out loud. I don't know, that everything is so jumbled from that night, but I heard this song, and I'd heard it before. It was new on Christian radio, contemporary Christian radio, but I didn't know it. And so I couldn't just keep singing it. And I was super confident that I was supposed to be listening to that song. It gave me something to focus on when nothing else around me really even made sense yet in the jumbledness of my brain and the head injury that I couldn't see my son, but I could hear people talking, and I heard them say, "We have a weak heartbeat." I thought I knew that they were all around me, taking care of all of us, but in the midst of that song, or in the midst of it all, that song said, the voice of truth says, "Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid." It was like a stop record. Y'all are old enough to know what I mean by that. So sometimes when I tell the story, the young ones just go, "What?" It was just on repeat. And I clung to that, "Don't be afraid," because I thought, okay, God, if you're telling me to not be afraid, then that means that everything's going to be okay, right? You're going to do something, you're going to make it better. They took me, they told me they were going to take me first out of the vehicle. I thought that was odd because everybody else seemed to be hurt more critically than I was. But they said, "No, we're taking you first." And they started strapping me on one of those backwards. And that's when I heard the next phrase of the song says, the voice of truth says, this is for my glory. But now he's even more confident that this is gonna be okay. God is gonna do something here. They took me on to the little hospital in Kingman, Kansas. And that's where I was, still on the backboard, when the chaplain came to the foot of my bed and he said, your husband and your son did not survive the accident. Your daughter's been taken to Via Christi, and we don't think she'll survive the night. That's when the song concluded. It says, out of all the voices calling out to me, I will choose to listen and believe the voice of truth. I was taken on the Via Christi when the ambulance came back that took Janessa to Via Christi as well. And when I arrived there, they told me that my daughter had taken a turn for the worse. And so I was there when they stopped breathing for her. And so I did get to be with her as she passed. She didn't even try to breathe when they stopped breathing for her. When I got there, they were just using a bag, squeezing it. I was so grateful for that team of people because I truly know with all my heart, they had done everything they could. They had done surgery. They tried to release the pressure in her brain before I got there. But they knew that it was too much head trauma for her. But they kept her alive until I got there. And I'm so grateful. They released me the next morning. All I had was a concussion and a broken rib in the front seat of a van, and my side did not have an airbag. In a head-on collision, I walked away. Now, as you can imagine, I was not pleased that I was alive. And this book tells that story. How God took me from that moment when I thought everything was going to be okay. It was a few months later that one of my friends asked me, are you going to keep believing in this God that let this happen to you when you were serving? And I thought, wow, this really is where I've seen a lot of people get to in the 20 years that I was a pastor's wife, that lots of people, things happen in this world we live in, things that we don't think God should have let happen, or times when we thought he should do something that he didn't do. And I've watched lots of people walk away from their faith and never understood it until that moment. And I realized, yeah, I get it now. And here I am, standing here realizing I can walk away. And then I thought, okay, but what does that mean? That means I'm going to choose to believe there's no life after this one, no God that will help me, and my children are just dead, and that's the end of it. No, I know this God. I've experienced him. He sang over me that night. He told me he would do something with this story. So I looked back at my friend and I said, yes, I'm going to still keep believing in this God. And that decision changed everything. So, oh my goodness, I can tell you stories all day, but you don't have time. Oh, see, I can't even see a clock. You guys are in trouble. It has been a long journey. I moved back to Liberal in year 3 after the accident. Took a position at my home church and began to serve the Lord again. Even before that, God told me that he wanted me to start telling the story of what he had done. And I just told you one piece of what he did the very first time at the beginning. And there are many stories. And I told him, I'm an accountant, remember? Like, I like those offices where you're all by yourself and you can talk maybe to one person at a time. I don't want to stand in front of people and tell them my story. But I could tell that that's what God wanted me to do. And so eventually I started telling the stories. And that led slowly over time until 2010. I finally quit my regular job and started speaking full-time for a living. So I speak in churches and I lead women's retreats, and we talk about all kinds of things like faith and hope and how do you believe again and how do you rebuild trust again and what can you ask God questions and all of the things that come with trauma and the hard things that happen in life. I still didn't ever intend to write a book. But in 2017, I believe it was, I started working on it because I became convinced that this was a gift I could give to people who are looking for it. People have asked me if it was therapeutic to write. No. By that point was 13, 14 years after I've been there. And I had found a lot of healing and a lot of hope and life, figuring out how to do life. And I didn't want to go back and relive it enough to write it down, to take you through the journey. I didn't want to just do platitudes, just trust God, it'll all be okay. It's more complicated than that, isn't it? There's a whole lot of wrestling that goes on when something difficult happens. So I had to go back, put myself back in each stage of the game to write the story. And then I had to learn how to write, because remember, I'm not a writer. And so I went to some training, writers conferences, and my friends helped me, and we wrote and rewrote and rewrote. And that's a journey as well, it's quite a story as well. And so this book encompasses about 10 years from the point of the accident to 10 years later. The Lord, in the midst of all of that, has given me an adopted daughter. And I never legally adopted her, but I met her before I left Miami. I started just hanging out with teenagers because I needed them with mine gone. My children were 11 and 14. And then that kind of led to me spending time with college students in the Christian club that was in the little community college there in Miami. And that put kids in my house. Well, what I did was I said, if you guys need a place to do your laundry, you can come to my house. Your house is full. And so it's been a lot of years since then. And that group of kids that used to do laundry in my house, we still get together for reunions. They are grown and married and have children, and those children are growing. And so it was that one of those girls became my summer intern when I moved back to Liberal and worked for that church. She would come every summer and help me with camp, Bible school, stuff like that. And during those 3 years, when she was a young adult, still in college, both her mom and her dad passed away. So God just put us together. She married one of those other kids that used to do the laundry in my house. And time went by and they couldn't conceive. And so they adopted a sibling group of 3. So there's adoption all over the place in my life. I keep up with my children's friends and those college students that are all grown up. And the amazing thing I think about those 3 children that are now my grandchildren is that one of them, his given name by his biological name, is Jaden, exactly spelled like them. God is amazing. He's just amazing. And you know, one of the things I've had to learn is that you can be like a little kid at Christmas that got a nice present, but it wasn't what they wanted. And you can stomp around and look pathetic. Or you can receive the gifts God has given you. Keep believing and seeing the goodness of God. And it will change everything. All right. What did I want you to get there? What do I want for you if you read this? One of the things that I want is for you to believe that this story really happened, that there really is a God that loves you too and wants to intervene in your story. And then I want this book to lead you to his book, to God's book. Because one of the things that I discovered, I had learned the Bible stories when I was a kid. I had studied them in seminary with my husband. But it was altogether different when I turned to the Bible for help. Then the story started just kind of, the characters in the story just came up off the page and started talking to me. And I could see how God interacted with them, and I could see the trauma they went through, and I could learn from them. And so that is in this book too. So there is journal entries, there is story, there is Bible story and how that came to life for me. There's a lot of music as well, because as you heard, God often spoke to me in song, because that's just what makes sense to my brain. It was not easy. If you ever want to write a book, consider carefully before you decide to put lyrics in. Because that is like a whole can of worms. And you have to get permission from a whole bunch of people. You have to pay them pennies for each book you sell, for each song that's there. It's a mess. But I was convinced that needed to be there. So I swam through all that. It took a long time. But the book released in 2019. And that's what I want for you. You choose to read it. To believe in this same God that I love and the book that he has written. That you'll meet him in the book I. Let you ask some questions. Now, anytime that I tell a story, this story, I know it kind of knocks you off your feet a little bit. So don't be afraid. And my life's an open book. You can ask anything you want to. It was a difficult journey to put my heart on your kitchen table and let you look at it, not knowing what you're going to think or what God is going to do. My story has a life of its own. That's hard, but it's good. Okay, what do you want to know? Yes, ma'am.
So which church are you affiliated with?
Cross Points. Used to be First Baptist, then 3 years ago, became affiliated with a group of churches across Kansas called Cross Points. I don't get to go there very often because I'm gone most weekends. It's been.
I'm just so glad that you had God.
I don't think so. I don't think I would have chosen to live. It was difficult to choose to live anything. But I don't think that I would have. I think I would have taken that.
How old were you in this happened?
40. My husband was 41 when he died. Children 11. Jaden was 11, a 6th grader, and Janessa is 14, an 8th grader. It's not, nobody expects this kind of stuff. But there are more stories like mine than you might think. You watch the news. There really are. And certainly around the globe. You think about the people in Ukraine. Some of the national disasters that we've had around the world, other people are in the shoes.
Were you the only ones in the wreck or were there other people involved?
There was the driver on the other side, right? It was just the four of us in our car, and then the pickup driver was by himself. He lived. I don't think that he was happy about that either. We've gotten to be good friends. Friends that met by accident, that's what we say. He has made it through dealing with the grief and the guilt. But it was an accident. It was just an accident. But it was just the two vehicles. We did not affect any other vehicles. And it could have been even worse. For sure. You guys are good question askers. Go right ahead. No, I have not remarried.
Did you have all your legal papers in lines, or was that really a mess? You know, bank statements and all of that.
We really did. It's amazing when I look backwards. Now, our denomination, we went into the ministry really young at 21. And we had a really good mentor that helped us set up lots of things. And so that we had life insurance. We had life insurance on the children. Crazy enough, you know how life insurance companies sometimes buy and sell, and you started with this company, you end up with that company. And somewhere along the way, we got a letter in the mail that said there was a class action suit about something. We didn't know what it was, but it said keep this card, so we kept that card. And eventually we get another letter in the mail that said you won the class action suit, and now you have this term life insurance policy. If you die in this little 2-year window of time, drop it in the thing. There were just so many things like that, where I feel like Jay really provided for me ahead of time. I had any idea of how critical that was going to be. Another thing our denomination did was pay for the pastors to have a will and a trust. So everything was really simple. Yeah, that could have been so much different. I hope you're doing that, prepare for the future. I know there are trauma in this room. You have stories. Many people have traumatic stories. They look different. But the pain is the same, isn't it? I bet if I were to ask you, maybe I just will. How many of you have buried a child by miscarriage? Yeah, see? Yep. There are those of us with that kind of hole in our heart, all around you. It's not supposed to be in that order, is it? But we live in a broken world. And then the point is to be ready for eternity. God loves us. He loves us, and he wants to put your life back together. One of the things that I've said was I feel like, well, actually, the pastor at one of the funerals that we had said, I'm just going to ask the question that is on everybody's mind right now. Where was God when all of this happened? Where was Jesus? He said, and I'm going to answer it. And he had my attention. He said, he was standing on the highway beside Lora, crying with her. And I believe that. I think that's why I heard him singing. And I think before he left that spot, he walked all around, figuratively, of course, and he picked up all of the pieces of my heart and he didn't miss any of them. He kept them all in his hand, and over time, he sewed them all back together. I saw something on Facebook the other day. It's worthless, isn't it? Facebook. It's been so much of your time. Anyway, I saw this picture of 3 pine jars. And the first one had one of those squishy balls stuffed down inside of it, and it just filled the whole jar. And then the next one had a smaller ball, and the next one had a smaller one. And then the caption was, grief does not get smaller over time. It's not like this picture. And then it had another picture that had the same first jar, the pint jar with the squished in ball filling the whole thing. But then it had a quart-sized jar with the same ball. And then it had a gallon-sized jar with the same ball. And it looked smaller, but it wasn't smaller. And it said, this is the way it is. You grow around the grief. The grief is still there. It's still the same. It's still that same hole, that longing in my heart for these children and husband and love forever until I see their face again. But in the meantime, I have grown, and that has allowed joy to sit in that jar along with the thing. That's how it looks. Anything else? Think I've missed coming to a close. If you are interested in buying the book, there's 16 that includes text, and it's just even, and I can take actual check for credit card. And you please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let us know if you do any kind of Zoom or, things like that, or maybe people who are interested in. But they don't, some places out here didn't have one. And there's many opportunities to work through grief, but there might be some that,
You can get a group of people together and have me come do a retreat for you. I would be honored.
Yeah, that would be cool. Thank you very much. And I will say, we will see you tomorrow. And we will have potato bar tomorrow, so come and have lunch with us again. Tara Schrader will be speaking on the Anxious Generation, and that'll be another wonderful book. Come and buy Lora Jones' book and read it or give it to someone else. Thank you.
Melanie, do we have a gift for her?
We do, actually. It's in my office.
Well, you'll get.
Thank you very much for that. That was good. We give out little gifts. They're coffee cups at the library. And so you'll have your own private little cup.
Thank you.
I just told her that she was getting the extras.
Oh, nice.
Yes, look at the colors, look at that.